Hello everyone, my name is Chase Gergen, and this is my presentation on two-dimensional k-means clustering of the iris dataset with centroid optimization. Let's start with the problem I'm solving. I use the data from the iris dataset to perform a k-means clustering with three centroids. Two-dimensional k-means clustering allowed for easy visualization of my results. The iris dataset has 5 attributes, which meant that I needed to select only 2 of them to be used as parameters. To decide which 2 attributes of the iris dataset would provide the most optimal setup for k-means clustering, I plotted every possible combination of data and chose petal length versus petal width as the attributes for my graph. This is outlined in the red box on the right. Using domain knowledge, I knew that since there are 3 classes of flowers, I would need 3 centroids. I started by plotting randomly generated centroids within the scope of the iris dataset and observed the results. I then began optimizing the area that the centroids could be spawned in to obtain consistent results. Finally, I compared the results of the k-means output and the actual data using graphs and metrics to quantify my results. The iris dataset contains 150 rows of data consisting of 3 classes of 50 instances each. Each row of data contains the sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, and which class the data belongs to. I was provided the data by Dr. Hodges and modified it slightly by incorporating the number of rows as the first line. The following figure is a screenshot of the header of the data. For the algorithm and the model, I started by reading in the entire dataset. From there, I created a new array of only the petal width, petal length, and class. Using the smaller dataset, I plotted a scatter plot of the petal width versus petal length, color coding each class to allow for comparing results later. I created 3 random centroids, allowing anywhere in the x range from -1 to 8, and anywhere in the y range from -1 to 4. I then iterated through the algorithm to find optimal ranges for the generation of each centroid. I implemented a k-means algorithm using a while loop to run until there were no more changes in point allocations. I was able to do this by assigning each point to the nearest centroid using Euclidean distance, and then taking the average xy coordinates of each newly assigned cluster and assigning the average to its respective centroid. I repeated these steps until no more changes occurred. I then took the results and plotted them using the same color coding as the actual iris data plot. I used the actual iris data to test the performance of my k-means algorithm by creating a confusion matrix and finding the accuracy, recall, precision, and F1 scores. I used centroid optimization to validate the performance of my k-means clustering. There were many occasions where the randomized clusters were not able to form 3 clusters. This is due to a weakness in the k-means algorithm, where if a centroid is not closer to any point, the algorithm will not be efficient. I started by assigning smaller separate ranges where each centroid could spawn and looked at the final locations of each centroid after successful clusterings. I used the data to form optimal ranges for each centroid to perform successfully every time. I am very happy with the results from the k-means clustering. The algorithm was able to produce results of accuracy, precision, recall, and F1 scores of all roughly 96%. This meant that only 6 out of 150 data points were misclassified. Here we see a 3x3 confusion matrix where the identity of the matrix are the correct class objects. The algorithm wasn't perfect, as we can see, that it thought 4 versicolor data points were Virginica and 2 Virginica points were versicolor. Here we can see a plot of the actual iris data and the k-means clusters. It is clear to see that the k-means algorithm can almost perfectly match the actual data. Thanks so much for watching my presentation and have a great day.